It looks like for the most part, everybody is here, so I can jump in and get started with the final presentation of the day, which is titled Understanding the College Admission Process. Just wanted to say thank you so much again for taking the time out of your afternoon to join us today to hear a little bit about Colorado College and what it means as a whole. So we understand that in many cases, and for many of y'all, the college application process can be very intimidating, and at some points it can feel overwhelming. So in our presentation, we'll be breaking down some different parts of the application process here at CC and providing insight on each. My name is Cody Leong. I'm an admission counselor here at Colorado College, and I'm also joined by one of my colleagues here on the staff, Dylan Sanchez, if he'd like to introduce himself.
Yes, thank you, Cody. Hey, everybody. My name is Dylan Sanchez, as Cody mentioned. I'm one of the assistant directors here. Still learning so much about CC and trying to figure out everything else that kind of goes into it. So hopefully during this session, we get to peel back the curtain a little bit on the admission side of things and let you show and just kind of show you kind of the things that we look for in the application process and kind of some of the things that you can look forward to over the next couple months as you start to think about applying to CC and everything like that. But along with Cody and myself, we're also joined by a couple of students as well, and hopefully we'll get to hear from some of them about what their experiences were like as prospective students at one point in time, and any advice they have for you all about going through the CC application process. So students, we were ambassadors and fellows. We want to give you a chance to introduce yourselves as well. If you wouldn't mind giving us your names, your grad years, hometowns, majors, if you have them, anything like that. So I think Andres, I did see it in here earlier. So if you want to get us started.
For sure. Hey y'all, my name is Andres. I'm going to be a junior this next year, and I took a gap year for the past academic year due to the pandemic. Currently, I'm planning to study Southwest Studies and Spanish. My hometown is Seattle, Washington. And yeah, I'm serving as a panelist right now as a admissions fellow. So it's great to be here. Yeah. And I use he, him pronouns.
Thank you. And Anya.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anya Cannell. I am a rising third year, a rising junior here at CC. Currently, I am an English creative writing poetry major here in my third year at CC. My hometown is Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago. So I am an international student here and can speak really directly to that experience at CC. Also, admissions ambassador. I work for the Office of Admission also.
Thank you, Anya. And last but not least, we also have Katie with us today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an admissions fellow, and I'm currently studying international political economy at CC. I'm going into my senior year, so very exciting stuff. Excited to meet all of you.
Great. Thank you to everybody who's joining us today for introducing themselves. And as we transition to the next slide, I'd like to first give an overview of what we'll be talking about through the course of this presentation. As Dylan mentioned before, one of the big things that we'll be discussing is we want to pull back the curtain a bit and to kind of talk about what the application process looks like at CC from our perspective. As part of that, we'll be talking about our different decision plans and what those look like, and maybe some considerations to take into account if you're deciding to pursue any of those. We'll also be talking about application materials, what those look like, and how to put your best foot forward using those. In addition to that, we'll be talking about the writing portion of your college application. We'll be talking about both your personal statement in general and also supplemental essays, such as the one that Colorado College has. And we'll also be talking about a few more specific Colorado College specific things, such as demonstrated interest. We'll define that and kind of talk more about what that looks like, especially here at Colorado College. And we'll also talk a little bit about interviews and what those look like here at Colorado College, such as the intention of those, what you can expect from one of them if you do one of them here at Colorado College or somewhere else. And we'll also be sure to reserve some time at the end of the presentation as well for our current students who have joined us today in order to share some insight throughout their process.
Perfect. Yeah, so we can go ahead and get started. And over on the next slide, we can talk about kind of everything to kind of just get us started as to what it actually looks like to apply to CC, right? So maybe just based on this presentation, maybe you've visited with us earlier this summer or whatever it might be, you're interested in applying to CC. So we can kind of take a look at the different ways that you can do that. First things first, right? You have to get your information to us. We have to see an application of some sort, and you have 3 ways to do so. The first one being the Common Application. The Common App is one of obviously the most common app that we'll see here at CC. We'll have a variety of different areas that you'll fill out, from your activities and leadership opportunities to your letters of recommendation and writing and supplemental pieces. But we'll talk about that in a bit. We also are available on the Coalition application as well as the QuestBridge application for any QuestBridge students. So you'll kind of know right off the bat which of the 3 you'll likely be applying to if you're a QuestBridge student or a part of the Coalition application. But like I said, for the most part, we'll see a lot of our applications through the Common App. Right, a great place to kind of keep all of your resources, all of your applications to different schools in one area. So it's a great resource. If you're not familiar with it, feel free to reach out to any of the admissions officers. We'd love to kind of explain what it is and how it works, just to kind of get you started there. But that's first things first. Will be the Common App. From there, obviously, we require the academic portion. Sorry, we have some jets flying over from the Air Force Base here in Colorado Springs, so you might be able to hear it. But on the academic side of things, right, we will look at a transcript and we'll really take a deep dive into really evaluate the rigor of the courses that you are taking, and of course the grades and how you actually performed in those different classes. So start to think about some of the classes that you're in now for anybody that's going to be a senior this fall, right? It might be a good time to start reflecting about what classes you're in. And if you're taking 5 classes or 6 classes all throughout your freshman, sophomore, junior year, and then going into your senior year, you're deciding to take maybe a lighter load, or you just want to take the underwater basket weaving classes that your high school offers, it might be time to kind of start evaluate it and see if you can push yourself all the way through right to the end of your senior year, because that's really what we're looking for our students that will join us next year in the fall, for those students that are the most academically curious, that are pushing themselves all the way through to the end of their senior year. So something to consider on that side. Again, feel free to reach out to any of the admissions officers about that and say, these are the classes that I'm in, or I'm thinking about changing this class or dropping this class or adding this class. We'd love to kind of give you some advice on that side and work with you and your high school guidance counselor or high school college counselor to make sure we're all on the same page as to what CC would be looking for, right? We are also on that academic side a test optional institution. We've been test optional. We've had variances of our test optional for I think over a decade now, but as of before COVID, we were a test optional institution entirely. So it's kind of up to you as to what you were in terms of if you're already planning on taking the tests or if you've already taken the tests, kind of looking at where some of our students score and kind of in the median ranges. And if you fall within our median ranges, right, I think it's a 30 to a 34 ACT, 14 or 1340 to a 1480 SAT. Within those ranges, of course, right? Send us your test scores. If you're above those ranges, send us the test scores. It would be really great to see kind of a big thumbs up, gold star on your application, but they don't have as much weight. The test scores just don't have as much weight as they have in past years or at other institutions. So I do encourage you, if you don't feel comfortable, if you don't think your test scores are the best evaluation of kind of who you are as a student or how strong you are academically, feel free to leave those off, and it will not impact you negatively for leaving those scores off. So that's an important piece that we want to add there. We do also, of course, require written statements, 2 portions of the written statement. The first being a personal essay. And we'll talk a little bit more in depth about what the writing looks like, but just to kind of give a brief overview. Just a brief overview right now. A personal essay, right, can be from a variety of prompts that you might choose or that you might see on the Common App. But one of the essays or one of the other portion of the written statement is going to be a YCC, right? Why Colorado College specifically? And this will be a rather short statement. It's limited to about 200 words. So you'll have a short space there to talk about professors or talk about a summer open campus event that you attended virtually that you're really excited about. But just give us a little bit more insight as to why you feel the love, why we're feeling the love here at CC, and why you're interested in us. But that's what those 2 written portions will look like on the applications. For activities and leadership, we also will put this portion in the common application. You'll be able to provide us with some insight as to what you do around your school and around your community. If you're an athlete, if you're a musician, if you're a part of the FBLA, honor societies, anything like that, throw that stuff in there. And what I would really encourage you to do is include that information, of course, but give us a little bit more detail in the little sections that go with it, especially on the common application. You have a portion to say, one, I'm in the marching band. Two, we also compete nationally and we travel around and we practice 8 to 10 hours a week. And I'm part of the honor band and I'm a section leader, all this sorts of stuff. So in the activities that you're involved in, feel free to over-explain some of the stuff that you do with that, because that really helps us see the kinds of stuff that you're engaged with outside of just the academic portion. We really want complete students, especially when looking at thinking about holistic application review and how we read things. We will read every aspect of your application that comes through. So it's very important to include your activities and any leadership opportunities you have. So there's that. We also require 2 letters of recommendation, 2 academic letters of recommendation, and a counselor evaluation. Your counselors at your high schools or at your institutions will likely know what they need to do for these. But if they have questions about it, or if you have questions about it, of course, you're welcome to talk to us about what those are. But essentially, your counselor will provide us with a little bit of a school profile to tell us a little bit more about the demographics of your school and how many advanced courses, AP, IB courses are offered, just so we know, right? Okay, this student took 10 out of 10 AP classes that their schools offered. So we know they did everything that they absolutely could. So that's just kind of what those counselor evaluations are. But of course, letters of recommendation, we suggest you start talking to some of your favorite teachers and some of the teachers that you have really connected with, just to start getting those started early in the academic year. Or if you've done so in the summer, right, you're welcome to reach out to start getting those areas worked on. And then lastly, it's a portion that's not required for the application process, but it is something that is pretty highly recommended. And I'll let Cody talk about the interview portion of the application.
Great. And we'll definitely be sure to spend some time talking about the interview portion of the application later on in this presentation. But as we transition to the next slide, let's see. It's great. There we go. And as we transition to the next slide, we'd like to talk a little bit about and stay in the application side of things and kind of talk about the different decision plans that Colorado College offers. And we'd like to do a brief overview of these and then also kind of break down what each one of these means. So to first start with on the most basic level, we offer 4 different decision options for our first year students, and we have 2 separate options for our transfer students as well. So the first I'd like to talk about our binding decision plans versus our non-decision binding plans. As you can see under our first year application options, early decision 1 and early decision 2, those are 2 binding and decision plans. What binding means is if you apply under one of these plans and we accept you as a student, what that means is that you are committing to come here next fall and you'll withdraw your application to some other institutions. I will say that if you do decide to apply early decision, it should be the product of a lot of careful thought. And I'd say if you're looking to apply to a Colorado College early decision, you should do that after you've really taken the time to do all the research into the institutions that you're interested in and really realize that, hey, Colorado College is the place that I'd like to be. I always like to say that this is equivalent to getting down on one knee in front of Colorado College, pulling out a ring and saying, Colorado College, you're the place for me. Some things I'd like to say in regards to deadlines is early decision 1, the deadline for submitting that application. And as Shannon mentioned earlier in this presentation, at any of these application deadlines for admission is also the deadline for submission of your financial aid materials as well. For early decision 1, the deadline for both your application and your financial aid materials will be November 1st. That being said, if say you'd like to explore your options and maybe do some more research on other institutions that you're interested in, we also offer early decision 2, and the deadline for that is January 15th. For early decision 1, you'll hear back regarding your admissions decision in mid-December, and for early decision 2, you'll hear back in mid-February. Moving beyond binding decision plans alone, say you would still like to keep your options open and you don't want to commit to any one place that early on in the process. We also offer early action, which is a non-binding early application process. And what that is, the deadline, the application deadline, as well as the financial aid deadline for that is also November 1st. But what you'll be able to do is by applying early action, you'll be able to get your application sent off and not have to worry about it through the rest of the year. And you'll also reciprocate that by also letting you know your application, your admissions decision earlier as well. If you apply early action, you'll hear back late December as well. Some other things to mention is, in addition to early decision and early action, we also offer a regular decision applicant process, and that the deadline for that is January 15th. And the word of advice that I would give you is that any institution that offers an early application option, I highly recommend that you take advantage of it, because as I said before, it really helps you get all of that work off your chest earlier, and you don't have to spend the holidays stressing about getting all of your application components in. In addition, I'd also like to take some time to talk about our deadline for transfer students. If you'd like to transfer to Colorado College for the spring 2022 semester, you have to have all of your materials in by October 15th. By October 15th. And if you'd like to transfer for the upcoming, for the fall of 2022, you'll have to have those in by March 1st of the preceding year. And also, I'd also like to talk to some of our students that are present here with us. I'd first like to ask, did any of you all apply early decision? And if so, could you possibly talk a little bit about what led you to make that decision?
Yeah, I applied early decision. I got deferred because I forgot my financial aid paperwork. So I would recommend you definitely file your financial aid paperwork on time. But I knew that I wanted to stay in Colorado, and I saw like CC was the best school at the time. It still is actually in Colorado. And so I was really committed to going, and I wanted to make sure that the school knew that. And so I applied early decision round 2 because I didn't know about CC until early decision 2. But it's the same deadline as regular. So you can kind of choose that time to commit, and it's a good opportunity to really increase your chances of getting into CC.
And kind of follow up on that, I guess for anybody else who didn't apply ED, if you considered it, or if you considered early decision but decided not to apply binding, I guess what factored into the admission, the admission application plan that you chose, if you don't mind me asking you all?
I applied early action.
Yeah, and for me, I applied through QuestBridge, so it was almost like extra early decision because I think I found out December 1st that I got into CC and was bound. But it was kind of a similar process where, although instead of just one school, you got to apply to like a bunch of different schools through early decision. But if you were accepted to one of them, then it was kind of like a binding decision with that school. So with me, it worked out with CC. And I guess, to touch a little bit about that first question, like why did I choose to rank, CC and apply like the early route? I guess a big reason was because out of the schools that were available to apply for, CC was like one of the only ones where I had actually visited, not the campus, but the surrounding area. So like Colorado Springs, Garden of the Gods, and got to hang out in like Manitou Springs, which is this really cute area nearby. And I just really liked it. And it was really, I was really fortunate to have family nearby too, since I'm from Washington State. And so I had some uncles and I think a cousin that lived in Pueblo, which is maybe about 40 minutes south. And so it really just worked out. And I was able to go to school there. That's kind of like my process that I went through to come to that decision.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing those insights into what went into y'all's decisions to apply the way you did. And as we move on to the next slide, we'll transition to talking a little bit around, as Dylan mentioned, talking a little bit about the college essay. And we'll be talking about that from both the perspective of the personal statement and the supplemental essay that is CC specific. So we'd first like to start by talking about the college essay, and this is your personal essay or personal statement. And the first thing that I'd like to do to make clear is you'll see like a variety of different nomenclatures. Some places call it the personal essay, some places call it the personal statement. And what that is is that's just the normal essay that you'll write in general for any school as part of whatever application you choose to apply with, whether that's the Questbridge application, the Coalition application, or the Common application. And in any case, you'll be given the choice to choose from a number of different prompts for this general essay. A word of advice that we'd like to first give y'all is don't spend too much time obsessing over which of the numerous prompts that you have the ability to respond to. For us as admissions officers, the prompt itself that you choose to respond to is less important, but rather what we're really looking for is through reading your essay, we want to know, can you write well, number one, and will you make valuable contributions to campus if you decide to come here as a student?
Yeah. And one of the aspects that we really want to stress as well is don't worry too much about what we want, right? One of the ways that our colleagues it's been described to me as to how we introduce this to students is that it's like picking out what to wear and choosing to wear a hat because you feel like we will like it or feel like other people will like it. When in actuality, right, you hate wearing hats and you never wear hats anywhere else. And we really stress that idea of, right, if you're trying to think about too much about what we want, you're not going to be in the right headspace to be creative and to think about who you actually are. So really stressing that kind of inward focus, that self-reflection piece that really allows you to represent yourself. And that's, I guess, the most important aspect to what we read, right? We want authentic, we want genuine essays that we read to try to, those are the ones that actually stand out is when a student's able to self-reflect a little bit better.
Kind of adding on one more point to the personal essay. When you write your personal statement, what it should do is it should illuminate, or alternatively, it should provide us with a so what narrative. For example, by the time any admissions officer is done reading your personal essay, we should really be able to come out of reading it with an idea of who you are. For example, we'd like to understand, what are you passionate about? Why do you like to do the things that you do? And really what drives you and motivates you to want to go to college and continue to go on and do great things? Moving beyond the personal essay alone, we'd also like to talk about the supplemental essay and what that means within the larger context, within the larger context of your application. So by the time that we've read your supplemental essay, we'll have learned a little bit about you through your personal statement, but we still have additional questions that we want to answer. For example, we want to know, are we as an institution, are we the best fit for you? And this is a two-way street, and we want to know, are you the best fit for us as well as a student? Well, some of the questions that we like to answer, that we hopefully like to answer through reading your supplemental essay is, you represent our vision or mission statements as well as our core values. And some other things that we're looking for is, can you visualize yourself as an institution? And if you come here, will you be an active member of the campus community? And as Dylan mentioned before, this is here at CC, you have about 200 words to illuminate us on why you'd like to be here.
Yeah, and really get into it and tell us why you're interested. If you're able to use specifics, right? If you can name drop, go ahead and do those things, because if it's somebody that stood out, if it was a student in a panel, if it was when you came to tour and there was a tour guide that really stood out to you, that really made the experience special for you, feel free to use any specifics and really draw on your experiences that you've had on the engagement that you had with us here at CC. So did you participate in any virtual stuff or any in-person visits? Was it an interview that you had that really stood out? But feel free to tell us about it, because we really do want to hear it. But I guess in that sense, right, if you're visiting with us and if you're engaged with us, make sure we can't just replace, in your essay, when you specifically mentioned CC, if we replace Colorado College with any other institution, will it actually be speaking to us, or are you just giving us a generic statement that you're writing to all of your colleges, right? We really want to make sure you're talking to us specifically. So that's when we really encourage those specifics to really stand out. Yeah, and on this next slide here, we'll talk a little bit more about that and what is demonstrated interest. So taking part in different opportunities that we offer, right, such as this one. All right, starting as soon as you registered for an event like this virtually, right, you've kind of plugged into your application already. Before you even apply to CC, we will be able to register. Because you've registered, we're already able to see, cool, these students have already visited with us. They know the block plan. They've heard what the students have had to say about the institution and being a student on campus. which is great for when we're trying to figure out this student has visited with us and engaged with us 30 times already, or they've called and sent emails. They've done so many different things with us. They know the campus versus a student that's never visited with us before. Right off the bat, we can tell the student that actually has that affinity towards CC and really wants to be here specifically. So it's great about the students that we get to choose as part of the application process. The students we get to enroll, is we get to really make sure they understand CC and are going to fit in within this community. Right now, we are also offering campus visitation going into the fall for anybody that hasn't had the chance to visit previously. We very recently reopened to in-person visitation. These include info sessions and tours by current students. Maybe you'll go out with Anya again to get to experience some different kinds of stuff around campus and kind of hear what her perspective is like. But there's all different ways that you can visit with us in that sense. And students, have any of you, did anyone have the chance to visit any of your college campuses that you were looking at? And did you visit CC before you applied?
I visited CC after I applied early decision, which was maybe my craziest idea. But I really liked the opportunity to come and see the campus because I was committed to it at that point. And I was really hoping that I wouldn't get there and hate it. And I think being on CC's campus and just seeing the students and kind of the life of the campus was a really exciting experience for me. And it helped me kind of really solidify my desire to go to CC and my gladness, my joy in applying early decision.
For me, I think the first time I saw CC's campus was during the admitted students open house. And so by then I had already committed to going, and luckily I had been to Colorado Springs before, as I mentioned. But I guess it was kind of felt a little uneasy, getting into a place and committing without actually seeing the campus. But once I got on campus, I was really glad. I was okay, this is actually really cool. And everyone was super nice, and I got to meet a bunch of friends that I still talk to today. And a couple of my family members came to visit too, and they were oh wow, everyone's really nice. This campus is really nice. And then also we're just talking about the students that were taking us on tours and leading activities were just really you could just tell how smart they were and just how nice and laid back too. And so those are things that kind of reassured me that CC would be a good place for me.
Awesome. All right. And so some other things to keep in mind along with demonstrated interest is that we'll also record, or not record in an actual sense that we'll be able to go back and hear it again. But any phone calls that you have to us here in the office or emails that you have, anytime you send a message to Cody or I or any of the other admissions staff here, all that stuff is is checked into your application. So we know we can always call back, and there's a handful of students that will reach out to us consistently all throughout the application process. And that allows us to advocate for students in particular. If you're telling us about different circumstances that you're going through or just wanting to check in on your application, we'd love to kind of hear from you just to kind of see how everything's going, just so we can make the process as seamless as possible for you. But of course, one of the best ways to demonstrate interest, again, one of the things we had talked about, and this is where we'll kind of circle back to the interview portion, and for those of you that are interested in doing that. So we can talk about that on the next slide with Cody.
Great, thank you so much. So I'd like to first talk about what an admission interview is and talk about it from the big picture, maybe what it represents, what we use it for, and I guess what the process looks like. And also follow up with some more tips from both myself and our admissions representatives here from the student perspective as well about what that looks like. So just to start from the most basic level, what an admission interview is it's a conversation between you and a representative here from our admission office. Here at Colorado College, most of our interviews are conducted by our admission fellows, who are third or fourth year students who have had the chance to really spend time on campus and really get involved in a number of different things and really get to know what Colorado College is about. Andres and Katie, who are here as part of the presentation with us, are fellows themselves. And a big reason why we offer interviews with prospective students is it gives us the chance to learn more about you. As Dylan just mentioned in regards to demonstrating interest, an interview, going to the effort of scheduling an interview shows that you really care about us and that you want to learn more about us as well. And also it gives you an opportunity. It's not just it's not just the interviewer asking questions of you about what drives you, but it also gives you a chance to ask questions and learn more about the institution. And especially in our case, the majority of our interviews we like to be conducted with admission fellows because they can provide so much more insight than us staff can in regards to what is Colorado College like from the student's perspective and what makes it different from any other institution. Here at Colorado College, interviews are optional, but they're recommended. And what we always recommend is if you have the opportunity to interview, you should. And through the summer and through the fall as well, we plan to offer virtual interview opportunities. So that ensures that if you'd like to take the opportunity to interview at CC, we'll give you the chance to be able to do so. Looking at it from the bigger picture, having an admission interview, it really helps to give context to your application that is hard to obtain without talking to you directly. Looking at the application as a whole, we'll have an idea of who you are through your writing, such as your personal statement and also your supplemental essay, and maybe the recommendations that come from your instructors as well as your college as well as your counselor. What an interview does is it really gives you the best opportunity that you have to give us the opportunity to learn about what really drives you and also learn your individual story and learn it from you firsthand. And I'd like to ask a question of the students here, and I'm asking if y'all interviewed with CC, and if so, what that was like.
Yeah, I think I interviewed with probably a fellow in your class of fellows, Cody. And I really enjoyed the experience. I think that there was information that I hadn't been able to find on the website that I was able to kind of coax out of a student at CC. And it was nice to hear a student perspective because I think that we have a lot of marketing materials and we have the whole website, but it was nice to hear what it's like to be on the ground, what it's like to experience the classes, especially because the block plan can be kind of daunting when you're first entering it. So hearing someone like reassure you that it's not as bad as it seems and that like we all kind of get through it and that it's actually a very helpful system was a really good way for me to kind of adjust to the idea of going to like one class at a time as opposed to the way that I'd been doing it my entire life.
I also had the opportunity to interview with some students from CC, which was great because I felt that they were very near to me in like age and outlook on life. And so I wasn't as like stressed as I think I would be if I was interviewing with like, a really much older person in like a suit and tie. It's nice to just like have a conversation. The interviews, while it is great to like put your best foot forward and really like show whoever's interviewing you what you are most passionate about. They're also a person. Hopefully you can make some jokes, just have quite a casual conversation. I would really, really encourage students who are not able to visit campus, whether you be outside of the US or just it's not within your means to fly all the way out here, really do interview, because this is an opportunity for you to connect one-on-one with the school and again, kind of like get your foot in a bit, show us that you are engaged and interested. So especially now as these things are virtual, really take opportunities that are virtual to get you connected with us here at CC.
All right. As we transition on to the next slide, I'd next like to talk a little bit about some interview tips for if you do, and if you decide to interview at CC, and we really hope that you do. So just from a general perspective, you can expect the interviewer to ask you questions about yourself and your interests, both inside and outside of school, such as they might ask you questions about what are you interested in academically and what do you spend your time doing when you're not in class yourself. For example, biggest piece of advice that I'd recommend is think about your past experiences. We usually recommend that people interview like the summer before their senior year or during the first few months of their senior year. And the reason why we say that is that's really a time during your high school career. You've had the time to like experience high school and also maybe give it a little thought to think back on your experiences, kind of how they've influenced the person you are today. You can also expect whoever's interviewing you to ask some questions about your interest in the institution. Through that, we're trying to determine, have you done your homework in regards to the background information? And speaking more specifically from the CC perspective, something that we really care about is what are you passionate about? And this could mean maybe like here in the class, if you're really interested in some specific part of history, or you're really interested in some part of biology. Here at CC, we don't want our interviews to be a high pressure, stressful experience where you feel like you're like a hamburger on the grill or something like that. We really, here at CC, we really like our interviews to be a two-way street, and we want to learn about we want to learn about you just as much as you want to learn about us. And I'd like to I guess maybe turn it over to our two fellows who have joined us on the call and maybe ask them to maybe expand upon maybe some things they look for and when they come to interviewing students, and know that this is not the same for each person.
Yeah, my primary thing that I look for is introspection. I love to talk about a student that like really seems to have thought about themselves, what they're interested in, what they like to do. That's kind of my big thing, because I think that if you've thought about yourself, you're ready to think about the world around you. So you're ready to come to CC and contribute. And like, do you have things that you're interested in starting at CC, or do you want to just be a participant? Do you want to be an active leader on campus? Do you want to what place do you find at CC, or what place will you find at CC, or will you carve a space for yourself? And so I think that introspection is a big part of that. And also just passion is a big part of that.
Yeah, and I guess to add on to that too, like some of the best interviews I've had so far, and I'm like, I guess pretty new to it as well, but were with students who I feel had a better sense of like where, I don't know, they're kind of like placed in the world, just like in, I guess compared to like other things, like, and who are like capable of looking at the bigger picture, and who had a good reason for the why of why they're doing things and doing the things that they're interested and involved with. And I guess to expand on that a little bit, so like there's, if students are involved in like community service or like volunteer work, like what, when they expanded on like why they got into that, and like those like stories that like sometimes are like left out on applications, and like really diving deep into those, and just expanding and getting to know them like as a person. And yeah, when we ask questions too, like, giving more like in-depth things as well, because then that makes our job easier too, as like admissions fellows, because we're trying to really boost your application. Like we're there to help you and help show, another side of you as a person. So I guess like those things, like going more in depth with the answers, and really talking on that why piece.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that, y'all. And the last piece of advice that we'll leave you with in regards to preparing for any kind of admissions interview, but especially at CC, is to be yourself. And as cliche as that sounds, we really want to like know who the authentic you is, because that'll be the person that you're bringing if you decide to come to Colorado College next year. And when it comes to like planning out your answers, have an idea of maybe what you'd like to talk about, but don't fully ahead of time rehearse your answers, because if you show up in an interview and you start saying something that's clearly you've memorized in your head, that'll be clear, and whoever's interviewing, such as a fellow or staff member, will start to think like if you're really being like the true, honest you. But in that case, we'd like to transition to next, sorry about that, an accidental mute. We'd like to next transition and just asking some general questions of our student panelists about their process when it came to looking for colleges and what that process looked like for them.
And so feel free to throw any, I know there's some questions in the chat already about kind of interview stuff that we're hopefully able to get back to you. If anyone has any further questions about that, we'd love to keep talking about the interview portion, but ambassadors and fellows, what is one piece of advice you would offer to students who are starting their college search process today here at Summer Open Campus?
I would say definitely take time to reflect on what you want out of a college, because I think the liberal art, like especially the big school, small school question, I think how much you need support from your school, how much you want to be kind of self-motivating is a very important question to ask. And also to think about like where you want to end up, what schools have to offer you, because I think specifically CC, I'm not going to be a walking ad, but has a lot to offer, and kind of what type of programming you're interested in and things like that. And that'll also help you write a better application. So when you say why CC, you have a reason and a path at CC. I think that's the big thing that I would look at when you're applying and choosing colleges. And don't apply to too many, because it'll just get stressful, I feel like.
Yeah, I would also say that looking at like location is really important too, and just depending on what you're involved with. MCC has a very unique location, being in Colorado, being really near to a lot of like natural beauty. I guess in terms of like places and things like that, but yeah, in terms of like stuff around the city and like public transit, maybe that's one place where it's kind of lacking. So like, you don't have a car like me and a lot of my friends, it's kind of hard to get around. So like, that's like one thing that I guess research going into the different schools will help with. Also in terms of like food too, I feel like CC does a good job, but I guess all of my friends feel the same way. So I guess, yeah, when you're looking at places, look at like what the dining options are as well. And yeah, like also what Katie was saying about what they have to offer, I would say in terms of like majors. So check to make sure that they have the major that you're interested or looking at. And then I would say also go in a little bit deeper and look at how many faculty are available for that major. Because I know there's some majors that are really popular, but maybe the faculty like isn't quite there, like compared to like different other, I guess other majors too. So those are, I guess, two things that I would mention.
Yeah, my little 2 cents would be, everybody's college process is going to look different. And to just be patient with yourself and feel it out. Just because half of your class is applying to these 3 places and you're like, oh, should I apply too? Like those sound like really good schools. Should I apply? But maybe those schools are just not right for you. So kind of as my colleagues have said, be really intentional about your research and stuff. Personally, my story, like my college story, I guess, doesn't really look like a lot of the people around me. I only applied to CC. I was never really planning on going to college. That was not something in my family's financial realm at all. And then I found out CC gave really good financial aid to international students, and I was like, okay. And so really I didn't search through a bunch of colleges. I just heard Colorado College. I was like, cool, applied, got in early, and I was like, I'm set, so which is just to say, be patient with yourself, know that your college application process is your own, and then college as a whole is really what you make of it. Be sure to look out for opportunities to get involved outside of academics, I would say. And are you looking at a school that is just okay, all you do here is study, or is it a school that's right, we get out into our community as well. These are our values. It's really great to be in a place that is aligned with personal values that you have, because you'll just have a much more fulfilling time for 4 years, I think. So intentionality is everything, patience, and yeah, just get excited to do some cool things.
I would add that you shouldn't be scared of the sticker prices. I think that you can look at CC's tuition and be a little freaked out, but if you can look at the aid policies of schools, you have a lot more available to you than you might originally think, looking at just prices alone.
For sure. And then I would also, last thing, I would add, don't be afraid to ask for help too. College admissions process was definitely, I guess, a bit daunting when I was looking at it, because I didn't have a ton of help from my parents, but I went through my school's resources. They had college counselors, and my just regular counselor helped a lot. And then also through avenues that I found outside of school, there was this really helpful organization that I found called Matriculate that helps low-income students with the application process, and they go through your essays. And I found that being super helpful. Also, the Quest Page organization was really helpful, guiding you through step by step. So I guess, make sure to check if you haven't heard of those organizations, and if you fit in the income bracket, those can be really helpful. But yeah, even asking friends, family, and just, colleagues for help, even just glancing at your essays, it goes a really long way.
Yeah, that is really good advice. And especially, considering that all of us are coming from such different circumstances, different backgrounds and everything. So very important. What is something that's kind of been unexpected about CC that you didn't know about when you enrolled, but you're glad that you know now? Kind of thinking about the student experience. Is there anything on that side?
one of the first things that I noticed about CC before I even came was that the motto was like science and discipline, and I was like, oh boy, I'm going into this like heavy science school where, you know, everybody's just out here doing math and such. And I arrived and I was really surprised at the amount of support and excitement everyone had about the arts, specifically about performing arts, dance workshop, and I've really found a lot of opportunities to lead in the creative arts side of things, and that is something that excites me, and that was a bit of a surprise, a very happy surprise.
I think for me, one thing that was a bit surprising was just the pace that the block plan goes on, just from class to class. Some of the classes, I guess, seem a little more like, I guess, flexible with the pacing, and like sometimes you could turn things in a little bit after the deadline, or you have a little bit longer to complete each assignment. And other classes will be like boom, 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 like a couple chapters a day, and it's a really quick turnaround. Especially, I guess, in my experience with some of the intro level science classes. And so that's one thing, I guess, that caught me a little bit off guard. But I think where, I guess, maybe it went a little bit, a little bit more wrong for me was when I waited to ask for help. So knowing that the blocks are only 3.5 weeks, if you wait till, the second, and then hopefully not the third week, which I did one time, to ask for help, be like, I'm actually really struggling, then sometimes it's actually too late. So, once, like, as soon as you, feel like you're struggling with the subject, after, really, I guess, wrestling with something and you feel like you're not getting it, you should definitely like hit up the tutoring center, even like a friend's or professors have been really helpful. So, in high school, I didn't really get used to asking for help. And so I think that kind of, was a disadvantage for me when I entered. But, once you kind of get past that barrier, then if that's something that you have.
Yeah, I would say the things that I learned are twofold. One is how much you can actually get done if you've procrastinated. I don't think I ever imagined that I would write 10 pages in one night, but it is something that I've done consistently through my college career. And the second thing is that every opportunity is pretty much available to you. I think I thought that I didn't need to find a job my freshman year because I needed to wait out and figure it out. You can find jobs your freshman year. You can find research your freshman year. Nothing is stopping you from, I think, going after things, which is something that I wish I learned maybe a little bit earlier about CC, is that everything is really available to you. CC is kind of your oyster.
Yeah. And so one of the questions, I think it was pretty common, or a question that I might have received more recently, is that, right, it's a competitive school to apply to. It's a competitive school to enroll at. So what is it like once you actually get here now as students? What is the competitive nature, the competitive environment, or is there one between the students on campus?
I would say it's one of the most collaborative places I've ever been. I think that there's no limit on the resources available, other than I think maybe the financial aid for going abroad. But in terms of professor attention, there's only 25 of you as opposed to a lecture hall of 300 people. In terms of research opportunities, there's plenty for everyone. And I think also because we are all kind of in the shared experience of the block plan, we kind of commiserate together, which is to say that if you get sick, people understand the pain of being sick on the block plan and are willing to step up to help you, are willing to give you their notes, are willing to catch you up. I've recorded lectures for people, and people will sit down and just listen to 3-hour lectures, which is kind of crazy to me. But people are willing to help you because we have all been there. We've all been in a position where maybe we weren't doing the best in the class and needed help. And so now we're also willing to offer that help to other people because of that.
Yeah, I would say that I think probably 95%, 95% of all of my classes that I've took, and then with the peers, I guess, that were in those classes have been really competitive and really, or not competitive, collaborative, and just very willing to help and work together with everything. I think, yeah, for the classes, I guess, weren't so much. I think it was more like intro level. And then it really depends on the major too. Because I think at first, when I started CC, I wanted to do neuroscience. And then after taking the neuroscience class and hearing kind of some of the experiences of other students, it was, I guess, I feel that it wasn't exactly for me, just with, it could be a little bit competitive, and it was just kind of a lot of information. And I feel like the faculty support wasn't also what I was expecting either. Just compared to other departments, there's a lot less faculty in that particular department. Not to single them out, but yeah. So just kind of like looking at what support systems I guess are available for each different major, because it varies, and I guess also how collaborative the classes can depend on that too. But vast majority of the time, very, very collaborative.
Very good. Awesome. And so I guess to kind of wrap up here before we end the session, can anyone tell us about something you consider to be unique or compelling about the CC community and your own experience? Maybe your favorite part about CC so far.
I think it's kind of a hard question, but having a community of academics around you, I think that people who choose liberal arts want to learn more so than to like get through the like slough of school, or you would want to sit in a lecture hall. So I think having people who are engaged, who do the reading for class really, and come and are willing to debate and discuss that with you, and then still go and get like a meal with you after class, is a really cool experience, because I think it's one of the places where your intelligence is like your greatest asset, but it's also something that people respect about you as opposed to seeing as a competition thing.
That's a great answer. I think my favorite part about CC to this point has certainly been my professors. I think CC attracts professors who are like trying to think differently about education, because as we all know, this is a kind of strange way to be doing college, but it works. And so it attracts both professors and students alike who are trying to like look critically at education from like these like very zoomed out kind of meta terms. I really appreciate how many of my professors are very attentive to the ways in which power operates in a classroom. I was like thinking about college, university, and expecting like a person with a big ruler in the front of the class, like pointing at a board and saying, okay, I have all the knowledge and I'm going to transport it to you. I'm going to spoon feed you all of this information. But that has not been my experience at all at CC. Again, the small class size, I think, is helpful for that, but also most classes are structured in a circle. Your professor will be sitting right there with you, and kind of just like not trying to do the whole I know more than you thing. It's more like, how can we generate knowledge together? How can we discuss whatever issue we're discussing and make it relate to all of our bodies and identities and positionalities in the classroom? And I think, as Katie said, like liberal arts is all about that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I would add that I would just say that I really appreciate how immersive the educational experience at CC is. And that's in like a couple of different aspects, you know, like talking about like education, everyone's really, you know, on top of their game, and, you know, getting to go into in-depth conversations about readings, you know, in and like outside of class too. Sometimes like they carry on like at the lunch table. I also really appreciate like the flexibility that being in one class gives you as well. So whether that means you can go like on a week-long field trip, which I did for one of my Southwest Studies classes. It was on border and like the politics, like in the borderlands, like in Texas. And we actually went down all the way to like Rio Grande City, the most like southernmost tip of Texas, and like spent like a week there, and like still did like the readings and stuff too, but we got to like experience a lot of the things we were talking about in class and see it firsthand. And all the abroad trips too, I think are really cool. There hasn't been any the past year because of COVID, but before, I think my freshman year, or after my freshman year during the summer, I was able to go to Spain for 2 blocks just to study Spanish. And Katie was there with me too. And that was a really fun experience because we got to be with a bunch of students and yeah, really experience the culture. And yeah, just read poetry, and it was a really have a fun time. And then, yeah, last thing I'll mention too is with the outdoor education department, you're able to like learn about, it's a lot of like hands-on, I guess, things too. And so like one of the outings that we went was actually to Costa Rica to like learn about like backpacking, like in the backcountry, camping, and it was just a lot of like hands-on experience and learning. So those are, yeah, some of the things I really appreciate. Find unique at CC.
Great. Well, thank you all for your responses. Here on this next slide and the last slide here, we just want to say thank you all for attending Summer Open Campus. Once this session concludes here in a few minutes, we're going to be sending out a survey for you. Please fill that out so we can continue to make our virtual programming as just include as much information as possible. We'll also have information about our preliminary application, or just please request you to start to think about the preliminary application if you are planning to apply to CC. Just filling this out will kind of put you on our mailing list and allow you to keep in contact, allow us to keep in contact with each other. There's no fee or application deadlines necessarily for any of those things. It just kind of gives you a sense of maybe if you have an idea of what plan you might be applying for, whether it's early decision or early action or anything like that. And then, of course, we also suggest you try our Build Your Own Block Plan tool. This will help you visualize what a year might look like for you at CC. And it's kind of a fun way to kind of see the different classes that are offered. It's just kind of a fun thing that you can do. So definitely something to check out. Again, those deadlines, keep those in mind as you continue to research and think about what colleges or universities you may be interested in applying to. But feel free to stay in touch with us. We have, of course, social media on all forms, from Discord to just regular old Instagrams, things like that. But of course, use us, email us at admission@coloradocollege.edu. If anyone has any questions, or if there's any questions you didn't get answered today, feel free to stay in touch with us. And thank you again to all of our panelists and all of our students and staff and faculty that were able to help us out today. We really appreciate it. But thank you all for being here.